Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen J Lotus, King Sunkiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe, for a Royale review for Girlfriends. And today is season 1, episode 8. I got that boom boom pow, them chickens jacking my style. They try to copy my swagger. I'm on that next shit now. I'm so 3008. You so 2000 late. I got that boom boom boom, that super boom boom boom. Let me get it now. I decided, I don't know, where midway, that I should try out using my mic. So you might notice an enhancement in the sound, at least a tad, at least, okay? I noticed a pretty good difference in the sound between the initials of the intro and now. But anywho, like I said, we are here for a Royale review for Girlfriends Season 1, Episode 8. And this episode is called Pregnancy Pause. And I felt a desire, a calling, if you will, to do, I guess you could say, make some extra connections about certain real world relevancies that was going on at the time of which this particular episode was released. Because of the way that it plays out, I was curious about some of the motivations and synchronicities as it concerns putting like this type of episode specifically where it's said. So, that being said, this is the episode where Joan, let's say for now at least, finds out that she is a pregnant. And the baby daddy would have to be old big old hips Marcus. Tisk. She didn't have any panties on. And nah, she done found herself in a bit of a pickle. No pun intended. Okay, so some of the background relevancies, just some background things that was going on at the time of which this episode was officially aired. It was officially aired on November 13th, 2000. And at this particular time, there had just been, like, they was in the freshness of presidential election aftermath. Whereas there was some presidential election going on between George W. Bush, the son, and Al Gore. And George Bush got on that horse and he rode it on into the Oval Office. So there was some unrest about this time. And I have been noticing that it seems as though the timelines have been clashing. Even though we're not as fresh in the aftermath of some elections, we are in still somewhat of a freshness, okay? We're not as fresh as this particular timing of the episode is, but we are still kind of fresh in some aftermath of some elections. And there are indeed some paralleling concerns that come up in this episode as it could concern some election aspects of things. Now, I do kind of wish, probably in the meantime, between time I may, but I kind of wish I would have looked up like the policies which George Bush was standing on as it concerns reproductive rights and such, and women's rights and such at the time. But we'll see about it, like I said, potentially in the meantime, in between time, as I get through this review. Something else that was going on too, that I noticed is parallel with some things going on in this episode amongst some, I feel like, also current spiritual synchronicities that's going on right now with the cosmos of it all, as I say that. So, also, the Beatles released an album, okay? Apparently it's called One. And it's a retrospective album featuring nearly all of their #1 hits in the UK and the US. And it became a global commercial juggernaut and was named the 2001 Billboard Album of the Year. Okay? And I feel like that is paralleling with this episode, as there are some themes that seem to be calling attention to the characters' sense of youth, as well as particularly their inner child, their inner children, and maybe even certain things concerning childhood trauma that may be coming up, even though some of it may not be spoken on directly or in depth like time back. There were also some other like global happenings going on as it concerned like governmental policies and rights and wrongs and regulations and distributions of power and things of that nature. We ain't gotta get into the specificities of those things, but I do feel like I said, there are some parallel and synchronicities going on with all of the things, and like I said, as it concerns some of the themes going on in this episode. So, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into the specificities of this episode. So when we open up the episode, all of the girls are gathered in Joan's living room, of course, and Lynn is going through some boxes of her stuff that her mama gave her that apparently is like her puberty in a box. Unfortunate. So this is calling attention to the fact that Lynn was very white in her childhood, coming up and everything. Apparently she didn't get up close and personal with her blackness until her college days, and that is the time also where she met Tony and Joan. In the midst of her going through all of this, she found some old clothes. She found a skateboard. Maya is like, okay, baby, exactly how white were you? She found some plaid shorts, which, as it concerns, I don't know if you say it's just black culture, but she found some plaid, colorful shorts that are like the stud shorts. The masculine lesbian coded shorts. So it's been a couple of things that I've been wondering, like, are they trying to say without saying throughout the thing? Like, I know Lynn don't really discriminate on sexual organs as it concerns who she have such exchanges with, but also DL lesbians can also overcompensate through hypersexuality as well. Now, you would think that Lynn is the type of character that would, you know, if that was her truth, she would just be open and honest about it. But you still got to think about the layers of homophobia and internalized homophobia, as well as how certain social standards and stigmas influence different time periods. And this was a particular time period where it was more acceptable to be considered sexually fluid as opposed to straight up les and openly straight up les. To my understanding, if you have some extra, you know, information you can fill in the blanks with, because in 2000 I was a toddler. So, you know what I'm saying, I got a different perspective. But if you was a little older at the time, you got some different memories and experience, honey, let me know, because I'm just going off observation of what I was able to look back at through the media of it all, amongst, you know, observing older siblings and older people that, you know, have been around me and such. Yeah, no, okay. In the midst of all this going on, Tony brings up that she and Joan have an old cassette of a video that they made back in college, and she wants to see it. And Joan is being very jumpy and sneaky about this video, and is trying to act like it don't exist. Just keep that in mind, okay? It's very minimal at this very moment, but just keep that in mind. And simply stated in this moment, all of that can also go ahead and be thoroughly communicated and brought together, that you can see those implementations that I was talking about that call attention back, or just call attention to the inner child aspects and the childhood aspects, also the sense of youth, memories of youth, things of that nature. But that concludes that scene, okay? It was a couple of things, you know, sprinkled up in there, and we'll get on to how the rest of this plays out. Now, as we proceed to give you R&B mother, because what you need is Tony at the bar ordering some food over the phone. She ordering like a fruit salad or something from somewhere, and she want to hold like thong fruit bowl, whatever that is. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that's what she ordering, and she, you know, it's a part of her treating herself. Now, she gets a phone call from Joan, and Joan is like, Tony, I think I'm pregnant. Tony said, who is this playing on my phone? She said, it's Joan, honey, it's Joan. She said, oh, no, sorry, Bob. You got to be playing on my top, because first of all, in order to be pregnant, you got to be having some sex. And Joan is like, I have been having some sex. Don't you remember, Marcus? And she said, oh my God, big hip Marcus, please tell me you used a condom. She said, yes, I did, but they're only like 87.3% effective. And he put it on, so I don't even know if he pinched it till, oh my God, my world is falling apart. I know it. I'm pregnant. What am I going to do? And Tony says, Joan, honey, step away from the ledge. Calm down. Okay, pipe down, Paul, and eat your pudding. You just got off of a major case. It could just be stress. Because Joan was saying she's late. I can't remember if I said that, but Joan said that her menstrual is late. Mother Nature is tardy for the party. All right. So once it's brought to her attention that Mother Nature could be tardy for the party because of stress, she said, "Oh, great! Which is one of the #1 killers of Black women, or something like that." She was going from one extreme to the next, child. Unfortunate. Right quick, right fast, though. I gotta acknowledge how. So what Joan said was, it could be stress. Oh, great. The #1 cause of strokes and heart attacks. So she figures she's gonna die of a heart attack, or she's pregnant. Well, she said she figures she's gonna die of a heart attack. And Tony says, or a stroke, but at least you're not pregnant. I'm gonna stick a pin in that, but it had to be acknowledged right quick, right fast. Now, as we proceed to give you R&B motherfuckers what you need. And what you need is us picking up at the office with Maya, and she on the phone with her mama, and we get some indication here that there are some unresolved issues being lightly touched on here from some previous episodes, the most previous episodes to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so Maya is saying to her mama, all I'm saying is if Darnell cheated on me, I think castration is a great option. And so she said, plus mama, the Lord said if the hand leads you to steal, cut it off. So what this lets us know is that the issue from the previous episode by Darnell seemingly to have cheated on Maya is unresolved, honey. It is unresolved. It's still a fact of a matter, and a matter of a fact in Maya's mind, that everything fishy ain't fish. So that's briefly touched on in that particular moment as she's on the phone with her mama saying what she's saying. But it's to be kept in mind, of course. So her mama is suggesting to her that they get marriage counseling, and she like, okay, we can get marriage counseling. Her mama say something about a reverend that they know, and she said, oh no, I can't do it with him. You know he be cheating on his wife, honey. It's a whole lot of being said in just that one instance, but we're gonna press forward as Maya ends up pressing forward, following Joan onto the office as she comes through, because Jonah came out the bathroom for the 11th time, and Maya, you know, is her assistant, so she keep a track of everything. And so as she is questioning Joan about why she using the bathroom so much, Joan is getting, you know, snappy and aggy about it, because she already got her own suspicions going on in her mind that she ain't really feeling. And Maya's like, if I ain't know no better, okay, you using the bathroom a lot, you irritable. If I ain't know no better, I say you was pregnant, but you ain't had sex since. Whoa, partner. I believe you had sex with Big Hill Marcus about 4 weeks and 3 days ago. Oh, hell no. Because see, if that baby got the same hips as his daddy, you'll have a hard time finding a car seat. Ma'am, please. But Maya is excited about the potentiality of Jones, of pregnancy. Because she's talking about, Jabari can have a play brother. Oh my gosh. Assuming that it will be a boy. Anyway, but so Joan is like, you gonna have to chill out, because I can't have this baby, okay? And Maya is like, cut the shit. Be 100. You don't want to have this baby. And Joan is like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to have this baby. I still ain't got the chance to see Venus. Maya gonna say, Venus ain't nothing but a bunch of shirtless people skating around, juggling bowling balls. She thinking she talking about Venus the city. John is like, baby, I'm talking about Italy. Come on, catch up. Come to class. You got your utensils. What's given? But Joan is quite adamant that she is not trying to have a baby right now. She ain't even got no man in her life on top of everything else that's going on. So I feel like those things are also pointing towards some childhood things, which leads us to the childhood things in Maya's case that she is saying to relate and encourage. She's like, look, I was 17 when I had Jabari, okay? And yeah. She was like, I was 13 when I no, sorry, Bob. She said, ooh, this will be a whole nother show. This will probably be the sitcom South Central if this girl had said that she was 13 when she had Jabari. Goodness gracious. Child. Like love and healing. All in all, in the most high's will and faithful. I'm hollering. Okay, no. She said, I was 17 when I had Jabari. Okay? My life wasn't even a 10th as together as yours is. And I mean, of course, I had my man. I wasn't really like looking forward to college. I knew I wasn't going to college type shit. I ain't really have a solid career to look forward to. And where was I going with this? John says, you are going back to your desk because you're not helping right now. She trying, honey. She trying. You know what I'm saying? She trying. And she makes some, you know, valid points. If Maya is all right, and she was even younger and even less together, you know, like she said, she had her mama and she had Darnell. He stuck around and all of the tangs, they got married, they doing this and that, but still Maya still you know, could have had the mentality to let that stop her, and the fact that she didn't is a valuable and valid testimony. So that being said, it's like, of course, it's totally her decision, right? It's totally her decision. And see, that's why also I do want to look up, at least by the end of the video, what were George Bush's policies on reproductive rights and all of the things of that nature, because then that would also help us better understand the volume and the stakes at hand that will add to why Joan is feeling so uptight the way that she is. And also what Joan says about like not having a man and not having a chance to see Venus, kind of a double-edged sword. Because like Maya is trying to say, just because you have a baby doesn't mean that your life has to be over. Certain things may be delayed a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But delayed don't mean denied. Okay? And so like Maya ends up saying in her own words, you know, just because it's not exactly how you would want it to be does not mean that is all bad. Okay, challenging don't mean impossible, and Joan does already have an established career. Okay, so there will be some extra things that she would have to. I do feel like this will kind of influence a turning up of the misogyny that she would experience at her job, especially being the fact that she was just promoted to junior partner, and they will be looking at her like out here getting promotions, having babies out of wedlock. Hard lady, you know. Isms and shit, disrespect. So there are those things to be concerned about, amongst the fact if she feel like she ain't ready for a baby or a baby ain't ready for her, you know what I'm saying, it just is what it is. Okay, but either way, you gonna have to deal with what folks got to say. And I know she probably also channeling on like what her mama would have to say. It would also remind her that her daddy is a very dissociated individual. We ain't been introduced to him yet in the show, but I know. Like, and that's the thing too that calls us back to the youth aspects and things of it, because this is bringing up like some childhood stuff. It's not being said explicitly, but one can infer that this type of thing coming up, especially the way that Joan fixates on the American dream technicalities of it all as it concerns the vision and image of her life and what she wants it to be. So that would definitely inevitably make her the type of person where this would hit way different and bring up them childhood issues and toxic family dynamics and shit up way different than most. And I feel like that's potentially a thing for most people, but I do feel like there are certain people who are obsessive in general, and once they get pregnant out of nowhere in a way that they didn't plan, especially if they tried to prevent it and it still happened, they would take it real hard. And child, just hold that thought. So in the midst of them having this conversation, William ends up walking in and getting on Joan because she was supposed to be on a call with him with some partner or, you know, somebody for work they were supposed to be having a phone meeting with. And he was up there trying to be both of them. Doing his high-pitched voice and everything, trying to be himself and Joan in the meeting. A mess. And so Joan was like, I may need you to cover for me for the rest of the day because I may need to go home. And Maya's like, yeah, she's not feeling well. She's a bit nauseous and a bit scattered and all this and that and the third. And he said, oh, don't worry, Joan, you're just pregnant, joking around and shit. But then they get serious. They have some serious ass reactions. So he like, oh, it's not the time, join a morning show. And he scurries on out, honey. And as he's scurrying on out, Tony and Lynn are scurrying on in. And he also addresses Lynn as Muppy because of how she dressed. She got these stud lesbian colorful plaided shorts on, these Carlton Banks top on, hair pulled back, tisk. So apparently Maya called them 911 emergency, reconnect the community or whatever, and they like, girl, you told us that you wasn't feeling well. You ain't telling us that you was having all of these symptoms. Something else is going on. And Joan starts to get snappy with them, and she can't even get snappy right because she starts feeling nauseous and like she's finna throw up and shit. And Tony's like, look, we're not even finna go through all of the motions with the caking and baking and shaking and all that. Okay, either you pregnant or you working yourself up, obsessing over the fact of whether or not you are pregnant. Okay, Tony is talking senseful, and John is like, oh no, I don't need to take a test, everything's okay, I'm warmed up for Tybo, and look, my breasts are tender, so that means my period is about to come. That could be the case, and or you could be pregnant. So they head on over to the stove, and Joan is in there being complicated. They like, look, we're gonna get a stick. We ain't doing the cup stuff. Tony is basically in charge of the girls at this point, as she should be. And Joan is trying her best to lead the show, but she constantly obsessing over the fact that if she is pregnant, it means that she failed her plan and all that she was supposed to have. You know, first comes love, then comes marriage. Not first comes baby, then marriage. It don't even rhyme. And they like, girl, go to the car. Maya tell her specifically, go to the car, crack the window, don't be touching no buttons or Nathaniel. Tony says, ski daddle. And she skis her daddle on out the door, as she should. And so Maya's like, look, I know I ain't looking for 9 months, 4 to 9 months of that. And they looking at the different sticks and such, and she's on for $13, $20, all that. You know how it be, but I'm like, I thought y'all can't get like a little dollar one. No, do they not have like the little dollar, little $2, $3, $5 ones in California? Is that not a thing in California? Because, or do y'all just know that Joan is the type where she ain't gonna trust the, you know, the cheap ones? But they started getting real like sentimental about it. Like, you know, if she is really pregnant, then we're gonna be, you know, basically a part of her village and such. So she gonna really need our support. We should really take this serious. And so they like, you know, you right. And they all break off and it's like, I'm gonna go get some Pampers. I'm gonna go get some prenatal vitamins. I'm gonna go get her some snacks and all the snack and listen to the things. So cute. So it is really a blessing that they are all excited and proactive about the potentiality of her pregnancy. So we back at Joan's house in the bathroom and they are waiting for the results of the test. And Joan is shaking in her boots. And Tony is being the ultimate supportive friend and ultimately compassionate. Like, I really love how they introduced this side of Tony to us. Okay, so interesting. All right, so Tony does the honors of picking up the test for her and looking at it for her. And when she looks at it, you can't really, you know, bruh, Jill Marie's a great actress because she did a great job at giving a ambiguous type of facial expression to where you can't tell if it's fear or excitement and or what the fear or excitement is about. But you know it's a mix of fear and excitement either way. And she says congratulations. And so Joan interprets it like, well, that mean I ain't pregnant, right? So great, yeah. And so Tony is like, well, maybe I should have said the opposite of congratulations. And she's like, oh God. And then we transition to her in the living room, Milton, all over the couch. Hollering, talking about it's unfair, she having a tantrum, just a pouting all about, talking about how she depressed and all this and that. It also puts me in mind of Sierra Gates on Love and Hip Hop Atlanta when Bambi pranked her with the pregnancy test, and she looked at that shit and immediately just started boo-hooing like a freaking baby. Oh my gosh, I hope I can find the picture of the video or whatever to put it up on the screen or in the video and whatnot to show y'all, because oh my gosh, that shit is fucking hilarious. But it's quite reminiscent of how Joan is losing her shit over the results of this pregnancy test. She is, like I said, she's talking about life is unfair. She did everything right. Why is this happening? I'm a good person. Why do bad things always happen to good people? Girl, hush. Girl. She's talking about she can't go on. She's going to bed and this and that and blah, 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 won't. Tony pulls her together, reels her in and say, look, I know this ain't exactly what you planned, but you gonna work it out, honey. You're pregnant and you are gonna deal with this. You'll get through this. And John's talking about, I can't be a mother right now. I'm still a daughter. Ma'am. So Maya says, John, you can be anything that you want to be. She says, no, I cannot be anything that I want to be. What if I want to be a sofa? I can't be a sofa. Can I be a sofa, Maya? And Leah gonna say, John, you don't want to be a sofa, honey. You see what happens when you were being a love seat? Lynn must be stopped. But John, as it concerns the happenings of this scene in general, I feel like it showed us like that, you know, despite certain things that may be quite toxic about the dynamics of their friendship, especially the stuff that we get to see as the series goes on, there is some real love here. There is some real support. I feel like all of the ladies are there. So I'm not gonna lie, I feel like all of the ladies except Joan are there from a pure-hearted place at root. And some of y'all probably not gonna like me saying that, but I said it and I mean it, and it is what it is, booski. And my perspective on that will be furtherly unpacked as something that'll be unpacked as we get to the end of this review, and more of it I'll address as we get through the series. And it's not that I think that Joan is evil or anything, I just don't think that she is genuine. You know, I think that to a degree she means well, but I think she don't know how to be real. So it's like it causes her major character flaws. But stick a pin in that. Stick a pin in that. Oh yes. So some of that actually can be addressed in this moment. So as I said before, it's totally understandable that John wouldn't want to have a baby right now. You know, it's not ideal. It would definitely be challenging, but it would be challenging either way because parenting is hard. Kids are challenging, period. And this response and her bullet points on why she's having such a response is contradictory to what she's communicated already thus far about her values and such and her aspirations. And I understand the particular order of it all the while, people who genuinely want to be parents, even if it happens, more often than not, even if it happens in a time where they didn't necessarily plan it, they don't have this type of vigorous, like, oh my God, my life is over type of response. Because they genuinely want to be a parent, because they genuinely want to raise a child and pour into a child, period. Regardless of how and when it happened. They may have had some expectations, but the unexpected happening didn't cause them to be like, oh my God, my life is over and I don't have a man. And honestly, Marcus wasn't no dog ass nigga or no shit. They didn't break up because he cheated or cussed her out or did nothing like that. She broke up with him because she felt like he was too into her too soon, which to a degree is understandable. At the same time, if you told that man that you was pregnant, I'm very sure he would have came and tried to be a father. Not to mention, you got your girls all here. Spare me please on your personal info. I ain't thinking about love, I'm just trying to get it up. Popping bottles, talk a lot of bullish and let's go. Okay? And that's what it's giving low-key, high-key. It's like John is kind of speaking with a forked tongue in a way. Like, it makes sense, you know, the stress, hormones, things of that nature. But at the same time, it's exposing certain things that just are what they are. Which is, John ain't really thinking about love. She just trying to get him up. Pop a bottle, talk a lot of bullish and let's go, okay? And ain't nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of like that fake good girl shit. It's that fake good girl shit. You want the halo effect, and you also got demon time desires on the low, and you want the American dream until certain aspects of the American dream that come with a lot of responsibility, real responsibility that's gonna bring the real out of you, actually become reality. You know what I'm saying? And so she's going down the list of all of these things that are kind of, again, it's understandable, human nature, all of the things, but at the same time, it's revealing of her mentality being very prioritizing of the image and what things look like. She's worried about what people would think about the fact that she's pregnant out of wedlock. She's having a baby out of wedlock. She's not in a relationship. She's not married. Girl. And of course, back then was progressive, but now it's even more progressive when it comes to certain things. But at the same time, girl. Do you know what pop my butt meant to Harriet Tubman? It meant a whip. And I say that, I say that to say, look around, smell the flowers. You ain't where, you know what I'm saying, the worst of it was. And again, like Maya was saying, you can be a single mom. It will still be challenging, but you have the resources and the village to be a single mom. You might have to hear certain folks' mouths, but you'll be okay. You'll be okay unless your top prioritization is other people's thoughts and opinions. Then that is where issue would come in. Amongst, like I said, you know, the undealt with childhood traumas and concerns about how the upbringing would feed into her abilities as a parent. All of that, you know, definitely understandable. And, you know, reasonable for her to have those concerns. Those should be questions that, you know, she asks herself and unpack. All the while, you would think that if one of your goals is to be a parent, that you would be proactive and also, and you can't prevent everything. Clearly, that's part of the lesson here, right? But also, you would think that you would be proactive in working out, you know, working out certain fears, facing certain fears with yourself internally and such before a case scenario could come about that you could potentially get pregnant. Because yeah, you got a 3-month rule and everything, but there's still the potentiality of having sex, and sex make babies. So you have, again, it's presenting like you have the resources, you have the village. So if you're this frightened, then this is something that is emotional and spiritual, maybe even psychological and things of that nature. So this goes to show that you've been overachieving in like the materialistics and superficial ways, and you know, the basics of collecting credentials and things of that nature. But you haven't been doing your soul work, your internal work. And now you got the potentiality of having a baby inside you, and you freaked because you know that you can't hide. You can't hide no more. It's out of your control now. Because as much as, you know, the parent is definitely, you know, to be revered if you parenting, okay? We know scriptures go both ways, all of it. If you a deadbeat, I ain't talking to you. But just in general, in the non-worst or bad case scenarios, yes, the parents are, you know, the heads, they're the leaders and all of those things. At the same time, the way that the nature of children is, the nature of the child ends up being in control more than anything, one way or another. So, you know, task of leading, like what I be saying? You give a man a fish to eat for a day. You teach a man a fish. You gotta teach that little being, that little human, how to fish. And of course, like I said, it's gonna be challenging either way. So, honey, you gotta count your blessings. Cause it could be worse. We transition all the while is somewhat still the same thing, but it's just Maya and Lynn talking. So, you know, Maya is still getting to know Tony and Lynn. So, the fascination, in case you forgot, the fascination is currently surrounding Lynn and her childhood vault that she's gotten, and the representation of her blackness in conjunction and or versus her blackness. So, in the midst of Maya getting to know this more information about Lynn, we are also getting to know more about Lynn. Whereas Maya asked Lynn, how is it that she didn't have really too much of a connection or experience of her black side until she got to college? Well, she asked, just rewind, okay? Lynn, it kind of starts in the middle of their conversation where Lynn is saying she really didn't get to experience much of her black side until she got to college. And so Maya follows up by asking, how is that? Why is that? You know what I'm saying? So Lynn tells her she wasn't raised by her birth parents. Her mom is white, her daddy is black, but she was adopted by an all-white family, and she was raised in a predominantly white neighborhood, went to predominantly, well, you could say all white schools and all of that. And Maya was like, one damn piece of black person, not a damn. And she was like, not a no. She was like, Maya, that is, then says, you didn't even have a black radio station to fill in the blanks or anything. And Lynn is like, nah, dog, and something about that white music, it just breaks you down. Definitely brings sinners to mind. Fucking hollering. So, like I said, we officially get to know more about Lynn's background and her upbringing and her youth through Maya asking all of the questions. And Maya also then relates to her in the manner of the music, admitting to her that she likes Bon Jovi. Okay, good taste. Don't get me started. And as they over there kikiing and all of that, Tony is like, y'all doing too much, y'all too loud. Joan is trying to sleep. Joan then pops up and is like, no, I can't even sleep like something for real. I love to, but the circumstances are just not allowing such things. I am up. And so she raises on up and she like, well, so much for my sleeping through the entire pregnancy plan. And they saying to her, you know, you got options. And Maya says, and you know, abortion is not one of them, right? And Tony says, look, it don't matter how you feel. This is Joan's choice. Boom, TikTok. And Maya says, well, you also got adoption. And if you choose adoption, please make sure that some black people are involved because we don't need a referring to Lynn. And in case you don't know what that is referred to, if I'm not mistaken, it refers to Psycho, the horror movie Psycho. And so, in the midst of all of this, Joan seems to come to the conclusion that she is like, I think, you know, I'm going to keep the baby. We ain't got to worry about all that. I want the baby. I'm accepting it. Everything is going to be fine. This wasn't part of my plan. But it seems as though there was a new plan on the horizon. And so, maybe I should adapt, okay, and be creative. Because clearly, this new plan includes a baby. And Tony says, oh, girl, this is going to be so much fun. And I get to dress the baby up like me. And Maya's like, see, girl, I told you everything was going to be all right. You got family, you got friends, and you got more than enough money for a nanny. I think like going out, and so there's a knock on the door. William's waiting for you, and he steps on in. He's company too. And so he comes in being forthcoming about him feeling, you know, kind of guilty about how he acted and reacted at the office earlier. He's like, it came to my attention that clearly you needed some support, and I ran out on you. If I'm not mistaken, you do need some support, right? And she says, yes, I'm pregnant, William. And he says, well, you know, hey, hang in there, slugger. And he says, do you know who the father is? And she says, hey, you know, I never look at the faces, as long as they put the money on the nightstand. And I wish he would have played into her joke a little more, but he was all about the business. He was like, I mean, is he involved? You gonna tell him? She was like, no, not at the moment. I haven't told him anything, but we just kind of working it out as we go. And she was like, but of course, I know who the father is. And he's like, well, look, if your baby need a father figure, you know that I'll be around. I always figured I'd make a good dad, and since I don't have anybody in my life and I care about you and all, you know, and I got something for the baby. He got something for the baby. It's a little toy, makes some little rattling noise and such. And so they have a hug, and it's a real sweet moment. And and Maya's talking about, oh, he want to be her baby daddy. That is so good. It's so sweet, and also so funny. And John is finally getting used to the idea and becoming chummy and misty out about it. And Tony comes up telling that, you know, if it's a girl, you can name her Tony. And hey, if it's a boy, you can name her Tony too. That's the great thing about Tony. And John is like, well, I can name the baby after all of you guys. And Lynn gonna say, Willatoma. Willatoma, oh my God, that is so cute. And William is like, I think my grandma had something like that removed off her feet recently. Like, no, her name could be like Myelin. If it's a girl, it could be like Myelin. Willatonia? I don't know. We figure, but Myelin is a pretty cute name. Okay, you figure out how to put Will and Tony, and you put it in the comments. Okay. But as we proceed to give you R&B, mother, because what you need is Joan is at home in her bathroom looking kind of solemn, kind of sad, and we see Tony in the store. She looking for some condoms. She's trying to see which ones got the best protection. Okay, she ain't trying to have no slip-ups. She said John's situation will scare her straight. I'm gonna leave that where it's at. I ain't even gonna say what I was thinking. We'll handle that when we get there. But y'all, and she's like, yo, what's good? You good? Oh, you got a craving? I think they got a discount on ice cream or whatever. Or they got her favorite, whichever one. But Joan ends up telling her she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. Now, doctor told her she not pregnant. Now, she didn't go into no details or nothing. But she said the doctor told her that she not pregnant. So she's feeling kind of down about it. It's quite, you know, interesting too how, like, as soon as she gets comfortable with the idea of it all, then she find out that it ain't given. And Tony remains sentimental and sweet about it all. And Joan says, you know, I still have these prenatal vitamins. They still vitamins, right? And Tony says, yeah, and I heard they're good for increasing your breast size. So then you hear Joan coughing and choking over the phone, and Tony's like, one at a time, girl, one at a time. You know they be coming at Joan because she a part of the itty bitty city committee. Real good, like real good. So what I want to say about that is, in my perception, I feel like it's kind of open-ended. I know that there are times, places, situations, and circumstances and such that can cause false positives, late cycles for any reason, things of that nature. But in my mind, Joan was pregnant and had a very early miscarriage. 11 as I said that, okay? But that's just my perception. I feel like Joan was pregnant and she ended up having an early miscarriage. Like, she found out very early, and then all at once she ended up having a very early miscarriage. And I feel like that's also why she didn't go into the details of it all, because if you just infer into the crooks and crannies of it all, she could have not wanted to go into detail, like from a place of guilt, perhaps, because she may have felt like she brought it on herself because she was declaring so hard that she didn't want the baby so bad right now. And so she may feel like she spoke it on herself. And like I said, as soon as she got used to the idea and everything, poof, gone just like that. And of course, that's why a lot of girls wait, you know, for a good couple of months until they pass a certain window to announce their pregnancies and such like that. Because anything can happen. And if I remember correctly, for some shit that I read and saw and watched and heard and took in and was learning and all that shit, very, very early miscarriages are like very, very common. and can often come off like just a late period because it's so early, and a lot of the times women may not even realize that they were pregnant. They'll just think that it's a late period and it just be like that. But that's what came of that. And I feel like it does show some genuine love and chords of friendship on some shit. The fact that they were able to influence a shift in Joan's perspective and what she was placing at the top of her values and priorities as it concerned the case scenario of it all. Cause she was tripping. Like, you know, of course, it's understandable. It's a frantic situation. It's a frantic situation. All the while, like I said, certain things that were being said and done in the midst still spoke measures about the mentality and the belief system that was going on in the individual. And so, we got some good character development with all of the characters in this episode. So I feel like that kind of brings light and answers my question a bit as to why the writers may have felt it was great to put this episode specifically in the placement that it is, because it's a good place to start seeing and experiencing some different dimensions, and as well as some growth and evolution and shit in the different characters. And this particular situation, like I said, the name of the episode is called Pregnancy Pause, and often pauses are for the purpose for you to stop, smell the roses, smell the coffee, and reflect, have retrospection about, you know, everything that's going on, everything that you want to go on, and all of those things. So the circumstances of the episode were definitely influencing that introspection and retrospection, even against our girl Joan's will. Because people who tend to obsess a lot to the point of having control issues like Joan does, is often from a place of them not wanting to be still because they're afraid of what they may see on the inside. Like, they're afraid to sit with themselves because essentially they're afraid that they don't like who they'll see in the mirror. And you can also think of the mirror as symbolic. It doesn't have to be like a literal mirror, but like your internal spiritual mirror. And when people have children, your children become mirrors of you. So that's also why I said she wouldn't be able to hide. Parents are unable to hide who they are from their kids. Even if they can convince their kids to lie to themselves about who their parents are, they're still not hiding who they are from their parents. The kids know who and how their parents are for real. At some point, they learn beyond a shadow of a doubt, and it's a matter of whether or not they lie to themselves and or other people about what it is that they know and don't know. You see? Amongst, like I said, the kids end up being reflections of the parents. So certain things about the parents, no matter how much they try to hide it or make it seem like it's something that it's not, it will inevitably show up in the kids, regardless. Even in the kids' adulthood, it'll inevitably show up in them. So I do feel like it was also something that Joan was afraid of. And like I said again, the circumstance brought out this more selfless and empathetic, this more selfless, empathetic, sympathetic, compassionate side of Tony. And we got to see Tony take the lead and take on the heart of it all, for the sake of Joan, for a change. We also got to know, so Maya is usually the more progressive in mentality, at least, you know, thus far in the episodes. She's had the more progressive of a mentality, you know, what she speaks on, that is, and comes off to be more of the woke one. But in this episode, she was giving a bit of a pro-life tease. She was giving a bit of a pro-life tease. So whereas up until this point, we had usually been seeing Maya kind of more so be a I am woman, hear me roar type of chick, this episode brought out that she does have, there's a side to her that is a bit pig-headed, that subscribes to being male identified, if you will, having a bit of a internalized misogyny. There's some other episodes where I feel like that can be better unpacked and explained about Maya, but this episode in particular peekaboo that little flaw about her out as it concerns this situation once the idea of abortion was brought up, you know what I'm saying? And of course she could have her own beliefs and such like that, but the way she came out it's as if like the elder women were saying that to her when she first got pregnant, and I'm sure that that's also what you can infer that that's a reflection of. That a word is again. That when she pops out at John, it was like, abortion is not one of those options. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's very declarative. That's you telling somebody what they're gonna do. That's essentially you impressing your belief system onto someone. It's one thing to be inspiring, be an example, enlighten, if you will, but it's another to push your agenda on someone. It's one thing to just be and someone take inspiration from you, y'all having an exchange, and you just, say what your belief is. It's another for you to literally project that onto someone, drop that onto someone like talking about. And that's the manner of which Maya was communicating what she said. It was a very quick moment, but it was very loud and impactful. And it reveals certain, new to us by the time we get to this episode type shit. It presents new dimensions of Maya up to this point type shit. With Lynn, we were getting to see a lot of dimensions about her, like I said, from her past, her upbringing, learning the fact that she was adopted by a white family. Her daddy is black, her mama is white biologically, but for the most part, she was raised seemingly isolated to whiteness. And so this lets us know even more so why Lynn seems to be all over the place and in a very elongated identity crisis. It's also interesting too when you think about the fact that Lynn was originally written to be white. So it's interesting to think about what specific changes were made to the character in order to be coherent with the change of Lynn being played, not only being played by a light-skinned black woman, but also Lynn being biracial, even as the character. So yeah, got to know that. And we also got to see a softer, more compassionate side of William, as well as William actively expressed and showed that he had to be introspective. He walked out on Joan in her moment of vulnerability, and it was him having been introspective, him having taken a pregnant pause to himself to come to the realization of, oh shit, like I know we play around, I know she a tough chick, but I handled that totally wrong, and I need to go make it right, and I need to go let her know that even if she don't know, I'm letting her know I was dead ass wrong, and I want to be right, I want to be better. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a lot of different layers in this episode that, like I said before in the beginning, is all like lending to the themes of introspection, retrospection, evaluating the inner child and the past life as a child, upbringing, all of those things. And of course, all centered around, well, mostly centered around the possibility of Joan having a child. One of the characters having a child, let alone it being Joan. And with that being said too, that's another thing that made me feel like it was bringing up a need for Joan to reevaluate her values and her principles and priorities and such, because Joan has children that are her friends. Her friends essentially operate like her children. She's the parent in her friend group. So it create this mentality of like, oh, and now, it's one person that I have to choose between, because Joan is a people pleaser. So it creates more decisions for her to have to make, like her potentially feeling like, how you see a lot of depictions of when a man is fixing to get married, his friend group starts to feel like he's going to abandon them and they're not going to ever see him again once he's finally a husband and has a wife. And I think, you can infer that Joan and people who end up in that situation, they start to think like, oh shit, especially if you're a people pleaser type shit like Joan, you would start to feel like, oh shit, now am I gonna disappoint my friends, like, because I'm not gonna be able to be there for them, I'm not gonna be able to hang with them as much as I usually do, because I'm gonna have to put the baby first, and they may end up getting upset with me, and I may be, I may end up just being alone with the baby, feeling guilty both about the friends and the baby and all of that shit. But once she was able to see and experience that her friends were on board and were willing and able to be supportive, it helped her feel better about the situation. So I feel like they can play a part as well. And then on the other side, like I said, it make you question her values, and or it calls to the attention the need to reevaluate her values and priorities and what she really wants and what she's truly invested in, because it brought up her fear that she may know that, or she may feel like her friends don't have the capacity to reciprocate to her and be there for her in a way that she is there for them. And bringing a baby to the situation makes that even more frightening and brings that even more to your attention. And so again, reevaluating the principles and the priorities and all of that shit, because then that would mean that now you need to reevaluate your friendships. And yeah, when children start coming into the equation, you definitely have to start reevaluating who you have in your life. And this is a similar topic that came up in my most recent review of the Bernie Mac show. Be sure to tune into that playlist. But yeah, about like when kids come into the equation, and or in general, when you go through different milestones, when you go through different evolutions and breakthroughs and promotions, and in variation, not just in career, but in different areas of your life in general, you go through different promotions and evolutions and things of that nature. You have to start reevaluating who is around you, because they can make it harder, they can make it better, and or they can just make a huge difference in where your energy and all your resources is invested, right? Because you may not be in the best situation, you may not be in the worst situation, but you may not be able to fully see and experience how to be totally resourceful and make the best of your situation if you are surrounded by negative people or people who are not in alignment with you. You may find yourself stagnant, not experiencing milestones, not experiencing promotions, and it can have a lot to do with your point of view being limited, your energy, your frequencies being limited, your mentality, your functionality being limited, all based on how you would naturally respond to the wrong people being around you, even in a subconscious sense. It could be certain ways and things that you're not even like mindful about. So again, like I said, milestones, promotions in life, things of that nature, you have to, like, each phase really start reevaluating your relationships and where your relationships are and where they should be, and if they should be at all, So is that all I wanted to say on Joan and her actions and reactions to the time? Because also I feel like this is a good lesson in the fact of, like, I said this a little bit before, of like, you can do things, you can do everything in your power to prevent something, but if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. You know what I'm saying? If this was divinely destined for you, that's what's gonna be divinely destined for you. So she can have this 3-month rule, she can get married and then have kids and do everything right as a wife and everything and mom and all that shit, and still end up divorced and a single mom and all some more shit. Or she could live happily ever after. Or she could get divorced and her ex-husband / baby daddy could still be at peace and cordial and have harmonious co-parenting and have a happily ever after that way, and potentially go find other people or be single and happy for the rest of their life. Like, it could go either way. You have to make the decision that you're going to be happy either way. And in order to make that decision, you have to value being happy either way. Honey, and I'm gonna leave it at that, but I'm gonna leave it at officially, because when it goes back to the values and the principles of it all, again, you have to value being happy either way. And Joan had a habit of showing that she valued being liked more than being happy, more than being respected, more than being mutually accommodated in her friendships. You see what I'm saying? So again, like, it doesn't mean that she's evil. It doesn't mean that she's all bad or no shit. It means that her investments are tied up and tangled. Because she says she wants to be happy, and then all of these other things will make her happy. But a lot of her actions and reactions show that her values lay more in being liked and accepted and favored by other people, more than being respected and having a true sense of happiness. Because a part of that too is, like, if you truly want to be happy, if you truly want to love and be loved, you're not going to get hung up on it's not coming from these specific people, because that's not going to bring you the happiness that you're looking for. So if you find yourself getting hung up on that, like, of course, you have emotions. You have to process emotions. There are processes. Not saying you get over stuff overnight. But what I'm saying is, if at a certain point you realize a person or people don't accept you, they don't respect you, they don't fuck with you for real, they don't truly love you, and you steady allow yourself to just dwell on those people and paint that brush over everything, that shows where you're truly invested. That shows where your energy and your values and your priorities are truly invested in things and people that don't fuck with you. So you're not truly invested in being happy and respected and truly loved for real. You want to be the favorite of these particular people who don't even fuck with you for real. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it takes it to where Joan was like, I don't have a man, I'm not married, and all of this and that, da 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 da. Okay, you still got family, people who love and care about you. You still have a village. So if loving and being loved is what you want, you got that. Just because it ain't dressed up exactly as you expected it, or exactly in one of the ways that you want it, doesn't mean you don't have it. So if you're willing to dispose of all of this other love that you have just because you don't have the one form of love that you want. That shows you're not truly invested in being loved and loving for real. You just want to be a nigga favorite. But child, let's get on down and wrap up this last scene where they are in John's living room, of course, once again, and they having a hunky-dory, a kiki ass time. And Lynn has come in looking back to normal, not like she hopped out of her puberty capsule or whatever the fuck. And she's talking about, you know, I have come to the conclusion that I am way too complex of a woman to be trying to put myself in different boxes and labels and letting the world tell me who I am, okay? I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am simply Lynn. Get used to it. Get used to it, hottie. Get used to it, hottie. And Maya tells her, Lynn, I hate to break it to you, shawty, but in America, you black. Fix. Okay. And so this final scene is just really like, you know, a wind down after all of the hoopla and angst and franticness that has been, you know, majority of the episode. And so to top it off, Tony has found that tape that was brought up at the very beginning. That Tony was like, you remember that tape we made in college that you claimed you couldn't find? And John was acting all weird about? Yeah. Tony done found it. And Tony comes in gleefully, putting the tape in the VCR, and they watching it down. And John is mortified. But honey, we are entertained. And I love this as a top off too. They on the tape talking about, my name is John, and I'm always on the phone, talking to my friends, till the morning begins, all night long, sing that song, that my name is Tony, I'm not a phony, and I'm gonna be famous, more than famous, Amos, break it down. And John is like, cut it off. And Tony said, cut yourself off, boo, I'm cute. Period. And see, that's another aspect, is, you know, as gleefully and playfully as that is and what's needed for the end of the episode, to end on a fun, lighthearted note and everything, it does also add more depth of information and such as to what else John could have been fearful of. I think we already passed the episode. I think we already passed the episode where Tony talks about having a fear of having a dark-skinned child because she essentially don't want her to experience colorism. You know, especially if it's a girl. She don't want her child to experience colorism. So I feel like without it being said explicitly, because Joan is passive-aggressive, that's also a part of what's going on here. Not necessarily Joan being afraid of her child experiencing colorism, but her being afraid of whatever bullying Joan may have experienced in high school, middle school, elementary, whatever awkwardness amongst. It hasn't been explicitly said yet as far as where we are in the series right now, but if you know the series, then you know Joan also has trauma from her parents getting divorced at a young age. When she was a young age, her parents got divorced and they traumatized her like a mug. So whatever the traumatic fallouts and trauma responses that Joan experienced and accumulated as a result of that, as a result of being from, you know, a broken home, if you will, she probably was afraid of her child experiencing that as well. And that's also a part of why she didn't want to be reminded through the video of like all of the discomforting and probably traumatic bullying and awkward and embarrassing moments that she's had in her younger years. And that's interesting to think about. Again, it's not explicitly said or pointed to or anything, but also how Lynn willfully and playfully even embracing the awkwardness of her younger years and the discomforts and such of her younger years in such the way was likely also influencing Joan to be even more up in angst. It probably was triggering her even more and contributing to more of the anxiety-filled energy of the episode. But y'all tell me what y'all think on all that. And honey, with all that being said, y'all, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this couch right. And I am thoroughly appreciative of the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe so that you could be one of the first to be back through these queenly quotas for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.